Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley, and I'm with my daughter today, Dr. Heidi Horsley. Hi, Heidi.
Hi, Mom.
Well, this show is brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation as well as in partnership with the Compassionate Friends. And Heidi, we've done quite a few shows on writing through grief, haven't we?
Yes, we've done a lot of those.
And a lot of things we told you about how to deal with grief, but today we've got a very special show because we're going to be talking about gardening through grief. And we've talked about nature and how people love to be in nature and that kind of thing, but we really haven't gotten into the gardening. And there are a lot of people that do fantastic gardens for their families.
There are, Mom, and like you said, we haven't talked enough about how healing it is to be in a garden, to plant a garden, to keep working in a garden after you've had a loss.
And so we've got some great guests today. You're going to really enjoy them. One of them is my own gardener.
I love that, yes.
And her name's Kim Perlmutter, and we're going to be introducing you to her. And then we're going to have Sarah Cornwell.
Yep.
She's going to be on our show. And Sarah is the head of a very special garden called, you want to talk about the Campbell Gardens?
It's called Campbell Gardens, and I just went there today for the first time. It's in Palo Alto, California.
Right in the middle of Silicon Valley.
It is. It's absolutely beautiful. It's this huge garden, and they have a home right there, and I don't know, what else would you want to say about it?
I don't know, it's just amazing to think of the home of Facebook and Apple and all those things, and here we've got this fabulous garden right in the center, so we're going to be talking about that. But first, Heidi, let's talk to my good friend, Kim Perlmutter.
Absolutely, and she does Inviting Spaces by Kim, right? Right, Kim?
Yes, it is.
Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome. It's great to have you on the show today. And tell the audience how you met me.
Gloria has been instrumental as my first place to plant gardens.
Wow.
It was a wonderful place to begin to realize how important what I do every day with making spaces more inviting. I paint with flowers, and there's nothing like mothering the earth. As after Joseph died, it made this make so much more sense.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Joseph, because you and I basically met because of the Compassionate Friends to start with. And the Compassionate Friends, as I said, is our partners. And the Compassionate Friends are helping people who've lost children, grandchildren, and siblings. And I was interested in that, and I got to know Kim, whose son Joey. Talk a little bit about Joey, and we want to show a couple of pictures of Joey.
Wonderful. So Joey loved to garden. He was an outside boy from the time he could crawl. And as he got older, we planted gardens together. This little boy with seeds, with six-packs. He knew to tickle the roots, and he enjoyed watching his Johnny jump-ups grow or his sunflowers grow. And he was very inspiring.
Now, I think we've got a sunflower picture of him, Joey, and they'll probably be showing it in just a minute. But talk a little bit. Yeah, he had a sudden death, right? He got an infection and died very briefly.
Overnight. It was very quickly and sudden. And something.
And there he is, with his sunflowers.
With his own sunflowers. He grew those.
Such a cute picture.
Darling. And we've got some big sunflowers to honor Joey today on our set.
So he was, you said he got sick very quickly and then died when he was, what, 4?
He was almost 4 and a half,
Wow.
and he died of an airborne virus,
Wow.
symptom-free, and it was extremely quick, as many of us know that have had this happen. And then what do? You come up with a way to survive the unthinkable, and I mothered the earth. So from the
Were
very
you
beginning.
involved? So it sounds like you were involved in mothering the earth when Joey was alive, and you did that with him. But you didn't do other people's gardens. You only did your own. Is that right?
That is true.
Okay.
And then it just, people came over and they wanted to be in my garden and they wanted to never leave it. And then
I came to your garden.
Gloria said, I want to hire you.
I sat down with her and I said, Kim, I want a garden like this because I'm not a gardener.
Yeah.
And I said, I want this. And you said, okay.
Let's go.
So you came over and started my garden.
Wow, that's amazing.
9 years ago.
later, exactly.
9 years later, you have your own business.
It's fun.
That's a great story.
Yeah, it is amazing. Well, we're going to be talking a little bit with Campbell Gardens. Talk about Joey and his gardening and Campbell Gardens, what it's meant for you.
We were actually regulars at Campbell. Campbell was a near and dear part of his lifetime. He used to go there and race around and have a blast with everyone, never really needing to watch where they are. The special part about Campbell is that it's a community garden that is very unique. It's free of charge. You can go 365 days a year and roam free. And there's not a place like that anywhere else. And it's very special. And My son would bring, we had play groups there. People didn't know anything about it. People that lived in Palo Alto didn't know about it. So it's just this hidden gem that was near and dear to our heart and became very significant also after he passed away. So I made that become a very important priority to be a part of Campbell as a volunteer.
Now talk about what gardening has meant to you. What does it actually mean in the soil for somebody who's grieving? What does that mean to you?
There's something indescribable to watch something grow and to be planting things that need me to take care of them.
Wow.
And I wasn't finished. It turns out I wasn't finished nurturing. And so I nurture plants, and there's just something very important to be able to look at a space and imagine 4 seasons and anticipate the next year and thinking about the future, which I don't think in the beginning of this I ever thought about 2 years away or 4 years away or how something would grow.
Well, that's so interesting, because here you took care of your little boy, and you nurtured him, and you took care of him, and you fed him, and you did all these things with him, and now you're doing it in your gardens for people.
Exactly. And I also empower other people to take care of things that they didn't notice and to bring them outside and to slow down and to enjoy and appreciate life. So as time has gone on, I think people that get to know the other part to what I do, it takes it to a different level. And people end up feeling that they want to share being outdoors and slowing down and appreciating a new day and not waiting for a vacation.
Right.
just
And
really-
I'm thinking people out there that have losses should, somehow plant a garden, or even, for me, I lived in Midtown Manhattan for years, get plants in their home to take care of them and nurture them and, feed them. It seems really, really healing.
It brings you to a place where you get hope, and we've talked about hope, and there's something that when you're watching something grow and you're giving this thing your energy and you see this happening, there's just, it's a rewarding experience. It is hard to put into words.
And people do talk about actually having their hands in the soil too. I've
And-
heard people talk about that, how just feeling it.
And being a little kid, I actually get to not dress up every day and play in the ground and get sweaty and play outdoors. And there's something very invigorating about that. It's very different.
And I'm thinking about with your business too. Talk about starting a business. I mean, that must have been a lot after a loss to be able to then move in and start doing a business.
When someone hires me now, I find it fascinating. There's a synchronicity to the pattern of who finds me, whether it's a widow, whether it's someone that's divorced, or it's somebody that's moved to a new town and they don't know what to do with the space, they don't know our climate. It's been very magical in who I find that gravitates to need what I have to offer. And it becomes much bigger than just the garden.
And I know you were telling me about sometimes people move into senior housing and they leave their beautiful gardens, and how you had one woman who just wanted her little patio to be beautiful.
Oh, I love that.
I've told this over and over, no space is too small to transform. And that one, in this particular example, that one space is everything to this lovely lady who gave up her gorgeous home and her beautiful life.
After her husband died?
After her husband passed away. And that space became her sanctuary. And she looks at it from her kitchen sink, but she loves to just be in it. And she has told me over and over, every day I sit out here. And again, I feel like Joseph lives on as I do these gardens and helping these people that wouldn't have this without me being a part of it, or they'd find someone else. But I'd like to think it's part of the bigger picture.
Yeah. Well, I think we have some pictures of some of the gardens you've done, and I think they'll be showing them. But I'll have to say that, isn't my garden beautiful, Heidi?
It's gorgeous. Yes, it's really, really beautiful.
And it's so much fun. Well, there's one
proud
of
of
your, talk about the wagon with Joey's wagon, right?
Gardening Through Grief, I started very quickly with incorporating Joey's living days, and that happens to be his wagon.
Wow.
And that became a perfect pot to grow lots of different plants in, and I'm very happy to see it. It looks pretty.
And you said he used to put his stuffed animals in there.
Yeah, that was in his bedroom with stuffed animals before I brought it outside.
I love that.
I love it.
He inspired me in the garden. That's a client's garden.
Oh,
That's
beautiful.
a Palo Alto garden.
Beautiful and wonderful.
Love the colors.
And that's an inviting space by Kim. There
And
you
I
have
love
it.
what you do with the pots. I have wonderful pots outside
Yeah.
my garden. And there is, yes, your inviting spaces through Kim and your contact information.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Heidi.
So, yeah, fabulous. You do a fabulous job. And I'll have to tell you, it's such a wonderful space for me because I have people who get in contact with me who've had a loss, and I can invite them over in my yard. And I've had more than one person. I have a bench there, I have a waterfall, Buddha head, very lovely. And I can sit there with them in this beautiful garden and talk to them about their lives.
Peaceful and tranquil.
And it's such a healing thing to be in nature. Well, let's take a look at, we've got a roll in from the Campbell Gardens garden, and I want to say that some of the people aren't working there anymore, but I loved I think it just really tells the story of the Campbell Garden.
Yeah.
And also we've got Sarah Cornwell coming on, and she is the new executive director of the garden. So she's our up-to-date person, but she tells me that the things that are going on that you'll see in this video are in the garden now, and it's in Palo Alto, California, and it's opened all year long, and you can just go walk on the grounds. It's absolutely fabulous. So let's take a look at the roll-in.
Sometimes perfectly good gardens can go to waste, but Elizabeth Campbell and her friends made sure that didn't happen here in Palo Alto. Miss Campbell worked in her garden until she died in 1981, and today it's a quiet sanctuary right in the middle of the city. Meryl Jensen is the director of horticulture at Elizabeth Campbell's garden here in Palo Alto, California. Now, can you give me some of the history of this garden? It's magnificent.
Sure. Elizabeth Campbell was part of the Procter & Gamble family. And they moved out here in 1902. She lived her entire life here at the garden. She was a huge gardener, beautiful gardens that have been here since the turn of the century. She was noted for her flower gardens that she had cuttings that she would donate to shut-ins in the hospital and just the local community.
So what's the mission of the garden today?
The mission of the garden today is education is the primary cornerstone, and then just being a resource for the community so people can come out and enjoy a place at no charge.
Children are an important part of the garden today.
Children are a very important part of the garden today.
Danny, here are your seeds. Are you ready? There
We're
you
not
go.
all over the place.
All over the place? Hannah, are you ready for your seeds? Okay.
Barbara Cristiani helps run the children's program here at the Elizabeth Campbell Garden. What are you trying to teach the kids?
Well, first of all, we want to teach them love of gardening, and they do. They just absolutely love being out here, getting their hands dirty. But secondly, we teach them about food. Food comes from plants, and then they make snacks with their food, and then with extra, we take to the food bank.
A lot of good little lessons are germinating here today. And this successful children's program ensures that Elizabeth Campbell's garden will be in really good little hands into tomorrow.
Well, what a great garden, and Sarah, so glad to meet you, and congratulations on being the executive director there, and it's a wonderful garden. You told us that you are yourself, before you came, a master gardener, right?
I started, and then when I had this opportunity, I decided to put all my focus with Campbell. So,
Wow. And you've been there for a year?
almost a year, yes.
It is phenomenal. Like I said, I'd never been there before today, and I can't believe it's right in the middle of Palo Alto. This
It's truly in
giant
the center.
community garden that anyone can go to. It's gorgeous.
It's an amazing place. Now, I know, Kim, your son used to enjoy the garden, and it's so interesting to see these kids running around the garden. I wonder, does that give you a little heart palpitation when you see kids running around, or?
Well, it reminds me of Joey running around, and he used to give his own garden tours. So that was, he would take everybody around, and he knew where everything was. Here's the place to hide, and here's the hiding. He was very, very well familiar giving his own garden tours.
Well, Sarah, what do you find that people say about the garden and gardening, and what are your thoughts about the garden?
It's just an oasis in the middle of Palo Alto. Palo Alto is such a bustling place, and here it is, 2.5 acres in the center that's been lovingly preserved from Elizabeth Campbell herself, around the beautiful house, the carriage house, the different buildings on there, and the way the part of the garden is designed, it's Edwardian style. There are different rooms to the garden, and you can be in the rose garden or the wisteria garden and just be enclosed in this beautiful greenery all around you, and you're just could be anywhere in the world. You're just surrounded by this tranquility and this calmness that I think really connects with people. Then the other part of the garden is very vibrant. There are vegetable beds growing, and there are children there harvesting them. There's a cutting garden that's maintained by a volunteer that we've had for 25 years. He turns 91 in 2 months.
Wow.
And he's there 5 days a week. And it's a very active cutting garden. He doesn't want to see anything go past its prime. There are flower arrangers there every Monday creating these beautiful arrangements in the house. It is an active working garden that that is just a home for so many people who live in Palo Alto and live outside of the Bay Area.
It sounds like what I'm hearing is that you've got a lot of volunteers. I mean, can anybody volunteer, or how does that work?
Absolutely. We have over 300 volunteers.
Oh, wow.
Who, some of them volunteer in the garden on a regular basis and love to prune or rake or just want to be there working alongside our staff and other volunteers. We have people that volunteer. We're a nonprofit. We have a board of directors. We have committees. We're a very active community. Last year there were 35,000 hours of volunteer time.
Wow.
So there's everything. And there's also volunteering around our spring tour, which is our biggest event at the end of April, where we have a tour of 5 residential gardens in and around Palo Alto. And that is a huge production, and that's all completely done by volunteers.
That's so great, because I was saying to you, I know Elizabeth Gamble from the Procter & Gamble family left the house. The house is there too. They didn't show that on the tour, but it's a lovely house, and somebody said, well, it's not that grand, and I said, that's what I love about it. It's like the garden. It's just, it's
really
some ways
natural.
understated. Yeah, very natural. It's really fantastic. But I love the idea of volunteering, because one of the things we find out, and I think Kim would say this too, after a loss, the time when you have to take care of your own garden and your own self, but there's a time when you start moving out to do things for other people. And
I'm
I
also
think that's
thinking,
part of
with
the healing.
Kim in mind, with Joey, the time that she gave Joey, the time that you give your children or your siblings, you can now give to creating, to also taking care of living things, but they're now plants and flowers.
Yeah, and also, Kim, did you find that as far as moving out and giving?
What I was going to add is to feel like I had a purpose again.
Yeah.
And it feels the gardening for others was at a very different level than just staying at home in my own sanctuary. And to be able to then go further out and feel safe, even if I could shut the gate and no one knew I was there, it gave me hope to be able to have something to do that was very meaningful and productive.
Yeah, and didn't you say something about a bench that was given to Campbell Gardens, or that you had, that was Joey's? I don't know, tell us about that.
We donated a few things in his memory.
Okay.
The willow hut was a funny thing. He would always go inside when the old one was there. It was so dilapidated, and I used to get terrified. He would pretend he was the wolf, and he would blow and blow. I'm like, get out of there, please, before it does fall down on your head. So he would love to try to take that one. And then he also loved frogs, and we had a fountain at home, and we donated, but it was magical when they chose the froggy fountains and a sunflower bowl, which I had nothing to do with the selection.
So you donated a frog fountain, or no?
A fountain
Okay.
and the willow hut and a
Wow.
bench. I created a cozy corner, because we had a cozy corner at home, and so that just made sense to create another
So when
cozy
people
corner.
go to the Campbell Garden, they can go to the cozy corner.
There's a bench and the fountain are close by. And I know that it's a well-loved bench, and I want to say this about Campbell. It sounds like everybody's always there, but you end up having the garden to yourself. There's something
Very
so
quiet. It was very
unique.
quiet today.
Yes, it was.
It's very typically like that. You walk through and it is really your own private garden. And that's so interesting, where it is and its location. And unless a community day, there really are not 100 people there probably in a week at the same time.
Which I think is appealing too, if you've had a loss, that you could volunteer there, and it wouldn't be like a whole bunch of people, there at the same time. Probably you can.
Not at all. Our Tuesdays and Wednesday garden volunteer programs in the morning, it's a group of about 20 or so people who are very passionate about gardening, and they know what they're coming in to do. Some like to garden in groups, and they'll weed a bed together. Some people have very particular spots of the garden that they love, so every week they're back in the spot that they love, and doing what they love, and really feel a sense of ownership of a particular spot of the garden.
That's awesome. Well, Kim, I wanted to ask you, if I've had a loss and I, would like to get started small. Have you got a suggestion for me? I mean, how do I get, I haven't gardened that much, and what
Start
would
with
I
a
do?
container. I always say that a container really is the best place to begin, and so it feels very fulfilling in that it's immediate gratification, but it's not as daunting as digging a big patch and trying to figure out what to plant in it. So start with a few pots.
I love that, a few pots, and I know one of the things that you do, Kim, is, for lack of a better word, you stock the flower places or the plant places to find out what the best looking plants are for this time of year, or ones that you think look good, and you bring them home. And sometimes I'll have some little special purple flower, and Kim will be so excited. She'll say, "Did you see that? Isn't that amazing?" I just found that one little. So I love that idea. You can spend some time going around to, you do your one little pot, Heidi.
Right.
Now you're
like
in
that idea.
Arizona. You put one little pot on your patio, and then you
like that idea.
go around and enjoy looking at flowers in flower stores and meeting people and buying those separate little plants.
Different kind of shopping, different kind of designing, decorating.
Yeah, and I love that you talk about your color palette again. You do it
Only
like
3
painting.
colors. I'm very picky about how many colors you can mix in a pot or in a garden. So
Okay.
it's 3 color rule.
The
And
3
I always
color
put
rule.
the colors in my hand and say, would you wear these colors?
Okay.
And then you pull out the colors that don't blend.
Oh, I like that idea.
It's a good way to
And I
figure
love
it.
the idea also that you know that you're bringing hope and joy to people when they look out and see their garden.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think we've talked a little bit about here and gotten to, because you were saying there's a solitude about a garden too, if you need that. You were saying that you could go to the Campbell Gardens, it's restful and quiet, or you can go to your yard, and you can find that solitude, in the garden and the quiet that you need sometimes. So it's great, just to be able to go out in nature.
Absolutely. I think that's really a healing thing. Is that what you feel is, what do you think helps people the most about being in a garden?
I think there is a solitude to it, but then also you're surrounded by the birds chirping
Ah,
and
yes.
the wind blowing and all these things that you may not pick up on otherwise. And suddenly the wind rustling through a tree or through plants nearby and you really hear it, you really listen to it, and it really makes you stop and think, and I think be very much in the moment, even if only for a split second, and then you're off to something else.
Which is important. Being in the moment and being mindful when you've after a loss is really key, because we're so anxious after a loss, and you're grieving for everything that you don't have in the future, and you're grieving for everything you've lost in the past. And if you can just stay in that moment, it really is helpful. And we need those breaks from grief.
And I think with the Elizabeth Gant, were you going to say
I
something?
was just going to say, one of my mottos is Abloom Waits for no one. And
I like that.
it's very interesting if you really do see how quickly a flower will be gorgeous, and then so there is a life cycle, right? And
Yes.
what I
Oh
was
my
going to
gosh.
share also is photography. So one of the things that I have done, and you see it at Campbell, is so frequently there's people taking pictures, and that's a very mindful, stay very present moment. You can't really think about anything else when you're taking a picture. And so the combination of how quickly a bloom is exquisite and then it's fading means that we have to slow down and really pay attention to staying in the now, or you miss it and it's gone.
Absolutely.
So
Love that. And I was thinking about Elizabeth Gamble too, has passed on now, and what she has left, and about how we do I think, Heidi, you always say, never forget your impact that you've had on the world,
Right.
or that other people have had on the world, and I think that's really important. And also, when I see plants and flowers now, I try to think about the fact that there are people taking care of them and the beauty in the world. And when you see beautiful roses, they didn't just get there. There are people who are beautifying and making things beautiful in nature.
Yeah.
Well, Kim, if you had one parting word to those who've had a loss, what would it be?
every day matters. I feel my son taught me to slow down. I really appreciate every day knowing that he lives on with, I wouldn't be who I am today doing these gardens if I hadn't had the opportunity to be my child's mother. And we can't take anything for granted. Life is precious.
And Sarah, what for people who come to the gardens, what would you hope for them?
To just stop for a minute and breathe and look at the light and the space. And the community, Campbell Garden is a garden, but it's also an incredible, vibrant community of people who are passionate about gardening. And passionate about creating tranquil spaces, even if they only don't get a chance to do it professionally, even if they can only volunteer it with it or just only visit it. So I just appreciate all the love that's there, that exists there.
Yeah, you've got the word, the love.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that love and beauty and those kinds of words are the things that we all need when we've had a loss.
I agree with you, Mom. And I think you can do this anywhere. You like Kim said, you can do it. You can just start with a small pot.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a giant yard or even have a yard to do this.
Absolutely. And also, you can also volunteer if you don't live in the Palo Alto area. You can volunteer in other community, and with the internet, you can find out what's going on in your neighborhood as far as plants and flowers and their community gardens.
I mean,
we
if
have
you-
one in our neighborhood.
If you live in Midtown Manhattan, where there are no yards, you can go to Central Park. They have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of volunteers. So you can do it anywhere, in any community.
And you can just do a day or an hour or whatever. So, but want to say that the first thing that you should remember is to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And we want to thank you guys for what you do, and thanks everybody for watching the show today. And Heidi and I always want to remind you, and I'm sure you do too, which is if you've lost hope, please lean on ours till you find your own, and God bless.